Welcome to Campaigns and Coffee. Grab your mug and let's dive into adventure and the answers to your quirkiest questions. Today, we're going to talk about Ken's Cyberpunk campaign, and now I'm going to kick it off again. Welcome to Campaigns and Coffee. Grab your mug and let's dive into tales of adventure and the answers to your quirkiest of questions. Today, we're going to talk about how Ken's Cyberpunk campaign didn't quite go as he had planned. And then we'll take a question or two from the audience. So, Ken, how did it not go as planned?
That presupposes that there's a plan. I had a series of ideas about how things might go. Was it perhaps one of the low probability options for how it would go? Yes, but I really did not. I really did not know how it was going to go. So to set up, our edgerunners are currently on a mission to flip a switch in the techno basement of a ruined headquarters of a corporation in the center of Night City. It's 2045, so the center is still old
still
city
glowing.
center. Yeah, it's still glowing from the nuke that went off at Arisoka
The
Towers.
hot zone.
The hot zone, right. And so as I was like prepping for this, I'm like, oh, well, actually Night City isn't as big as I thought it was. Because in my original version of this, I was thinking, oh, well, it's going to be like Escape from New York. And like the core of Night City is not the size of Manhattan, right? It's not that big. And so I was originally thinking, oh, it'll be an adventure to get in there or whatever. And it's going to take like a session or two. And then I realized how small it was. And I'm like, well, actually, the Nomad's probably just going to get a car and just like drive in. So I had to introduce some like role playing options. So like, there were people who were like kind of running gates or blockaded things to like realizing that old Night City, the center core, has like technological ruins that people would want to exploit, right? So I had some role playing things, and I kind of just assumed that the Nomad would be able to go whizzing through. And I also didn't want to nerf Aaron's character to go, like, right. You don't get to do anything, right? You should have the opportunity to go driving through this. There should also be opportunities for the players to go, hey, why don't we stop and help those poor people who are being shaken down by scavvers? Or they could say, we're not helping anyone. We're here on a mission to flip a switch, which is what the group actually did. And so as the group was approaching Elysium HQ, which is this the ruins of the corporate headquarters, they found that there were these borged out individuals who were currently in front of it fighting ravens. Turns out to be cybernetic ravens.
Yep.
And at least one of them is a cyberpsycho. At least, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
You've been watching way too much. What was it?
Everything.
What was
everything. Resident Evil?
Resident Evil, yes. Yes. You've been watching way too much Resident Evil.
I have. I just watched the whole series. All the movies, at least that was. So anyway, so they come up and like, I wasn't quite sure how things were going. I just kind of set the set piece of, we have a cyberpsycho and two of his, fellows. They're glow boys, which are these guys who worship radiation. I don't know if you guys remembered that, but like there's a faction who are living within the ruins of Night City. They themselves, like, why are they there? But they have clearly been under assault by something that had been picking them apart. It was quickly revealed that it was these cybernetic ravens. And that the ravens were somewhat intelligent. And so you guys, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, right? Like, are you going to come up and try and like talk to these guys? Are you going to help them fend off the ravens? Are you going to help the ravens by slaying the cyborgs? Like, how does it go? And none of those things happened because our Nomad failed her drive check
spectacularly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, I don't know, David, do you want to describe from the player's perspective what happened?
Yeah, I think
Chris?
the idea. I think Omen's idea, Aaron's character, was to go in and maybe run over some of the glow boys, but tire caught on some debris and a piece of rebar went through the tire and whole car flipped upside down. And that wasn't great. A couple of us were thrown from the car, sort of thing. And I think that it would have been okay. We could have like taken down some guys. We ended up shooting at both sides. So that's not going to be great for the future, I'm sure. And I think the car would have been okay. We could have turned it right side up, until the leader of the Glow Boys, used his arm-mounted rocket launcher to basically lob a rocket or grenade or some sort of explosive into the car. And so, yeah, we're walking out, No,
Yeah. And I think that if you just sat me down and said, Chris, your character is going to try to hack a flock of ravens, I would have been dubious. And yet, this is what happened.
Yep.
The other part that was great about this was that as you guys were kind of like racing in, my assumption had been like all of the, like you're going to park the car, the edgerunners are all going to go in, there's going to be a run through the complex, a la Resident Evil, and then everybody's going to come back out again, right? And Omen was like, hell no, you boys are going in. I'm waiting with the car, right? Like I'll just take some loops around the. Okay, well I'll figure something out to keep her entertained.
That was a little surprise. That was a little bit surprising to everyone.
Honestly, it's like every rigger in Shadowrun. Every rigger in Shadowrun is like, I'm just going to stay in the car. Maybe I'll launch a drone to help you, but this is where I live.
But the best part is, like, of course, like after she wipes out and the car flips, and like I had this moment where I'm looking at my Cyberpsycho and I see all all of his weaponry, and like the compassionate GM kind of kicked in. I'm like, I don't know, man. I should have really hit them when they're down. I'm like, it's a Cyberpsycho, right? Like Edgerunners immediately came to mind, and I'm like, he's not gonna sit there and like not do anything. He's got a freaking grenade launcher in his cyber arm. He's gonna shoot it. And if you all happen to die, then we're just going to deal with that, right? Like, it would become more interesting. Now you have to struggle to, I don't know what the heck you guys would do. We'd introduce some new PCs or scavengers in the city or whatever, right? Like, we would come up with something as the Edgerunners survived the scenario. I don't think that Cyberpunk is the genre where you're going to pull that particular punch. No, you guys survived.
We did. It would have been like, when you said, like maybe you're, these other scavengers or whatever in the city, I'm like, so the scavengers that we just blew by are our new characters. The ones that were being harassed by scavers, which is scavengers and scavers, they are same root word, things. But two different things.
Yes, two different things.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that'd be kind of funny.
And so Maelstrom is also out there, and I think the other thing that I really had fun with, because I had actually asked earlier about adding horror elements to the game, because I mean, you're in Old Night City, like it's things are not great, right? And so I wanted to really play with the ravens, because I've read a lot of book about intelligent crows at this point, and like tweaking that intelligence. What would have been happening if they'd been living, whatever their origin is, perhaps you will find it. They've been living in an irradiated zone. Clearly, they're very intelligent to begin with. They get smarter. They like shiny things. Why wouldn't they Borg up?
Yep.
I thought it made perfect sense. I mean, I really enjoyed that part of the game. One of the things that I have struggled with in my own Cyberpunk games is kind of getting out of the fantasy thing and into the what's wild and crazy and interesting, and what's that weird mashups of tech and organic and social and all of that becomes this cyberpunk thing. And then the punked out ravens were crows were really great. I mean, I thought it was great. I'm looking forward to seeing what the hell's inside that building. So that's going to be a good time. But I thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing, and as a player, I appreciate the fact that you weren't pulling punches. I mean, I love this character. I've spent more time on this character than any character in years.
You have, you totally have. Yeah,
yeah. It's just yeah.
And I've only seen like the tip of that iceberg. So
that's a whole other show. But I think that, Cyberpunk, the interface system, all of that is designed to be that it's hard. People die. Life is cheap. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to remember that because we're used to fantasy role-playing games where we're all trying to be Bilbo or Legolas or whatever. You're kind of disposable here. And yeah, you want to tell a story of hero. We're going to use heroes loosely. Protagonists, certainly. But at the same time, you know, you got to go with the terrible things when they happen. So yeah, I appreciated it.
Yeah, the game kind of straddles the line between the OSR, the old school revival sort of, you know, dungeon crawl classics, you know, go through the funnel sort of thing, and then like 5e D&D where it's almost impossible to die and you're basically superheroes in a fantasy setting. And yeah, I am definitely used to campaigns where the role playing is the most important part, and like developing your character and everything like that. And so like if a character would die in that, that's a pretty like that's maybe a couple of sessions to deal with the character death sort of thing. You know, and it hasn't really happened very often at all. Like maybe twice in my long time gaming. And I'm talking about like role playing, like really intense role playing games. There are the more casual type of games. There's the games in college that I played at the game group. The Adventure Quest was the name of the system, but it was the Purdue Fantasy Club, which is still going on. I found out with AQ, and yeah, characters would die in there every week. Not in mass, but like one or two every week. But it was definitely not a role-playing campaign.
Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Classics, Gamma World. I mean, all that stuff. You know, bring 3 characters.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I've had it before with like, and I think, like you say, in fantasy, it's harder, right? Like a lot of D&D fantasy ends up being like the first Thor movie, right? Like you're just that good, as opposed to Delta Green, where we played the Night Floor scenario and we had agents blindly shooting at each other through a wooden door, and it ended poorly. Right? It was great, but it ended poorly. So I think this session ended up being pretty good. I think it ended up being very creepy. And I wasn't planning on doing that, but it made complete sense at the time. So you have the final scene is basically like the car is burning behind you. Someone says, I guess we're walking out, right? And then like there's the remains, the pulped remains of the cyborgs lying in front of you. All of the Ravens have retreated into the building, and it's got like broken glass, and like, you know, there's still some neon because obviously there's some power still going, and like they're just looking down and saying chrome, fresh meat, right? And you don't quite know, are they talking about you? Are they talking about the things? What are you going to do with these things, which clearly are menacing, right? Like I thought it was a very nice cliffhanger. Like,
yeah, my character Angry Bob is not looking forward to going into that building.
It ended on a feel of like George Miller meets Guy Ritchie kind of slow motion walk forward into the building with this horrible post-apocalyptic thing hanging over us. It was great. All the hallmarks of a good heist movie, but little extra something.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was me that said it, like Angry Bob that said it, or if it was someone else, but it was, we're not getting paid enough for this.
I think that was you.
Which you already established on the way in.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we got a huge bump in what they were going to pay us. Definitely, like, I think it was like more than 10 times what they paid what our first job paid us, but it's still not enough.
I think that's going to be a theme with this party. I think that's just going to be one of our catchphrases.
Yeah,
we are not getting paid enough for this.
We just got to. I think we got to pull our catchphrases from like the Danny Glover, Mel Gibson movie, the
Lethal Weapon.
What is that? Lethal Weapon series. Yeah, just got pull stuff, pull catchphrases from old 80s and 90s movies. Is I think would just fit with this group. I think, however, it's time for a question from one of our audience members out there. Let's see. Do we want a straight question, or do we want one of the more out there questions?
I'm happy to go with one of the out there questions. Let's see what happens. I mean, I don't think you should be judging our listeners like that.
Well,
even the fake ones.
Even the fake ones, yeah. Well, we do have a question from one of our minions. What's the best way to organize a union for minions seeking better health potions and shorter dungeon shifts?
So I've got this. So what you need to do is you get everybody together and you get them inside the intrinsic field generator. Okay. And there's plenty of room inside that. And then the Overlord will lock the door and all the minions will be vaporized and there'll be no problem with the union anymore. I'm sorry. Did I do that backwards?
You did that a little backwards. It was how to organize a union, not how to disintegrate a union.
Well, it was organized. I mean, okay. I misunderstood. Go
Up
ahead.
to
In this scenario, are we the minions?
Old habits die hard. Sorry, go on.
No, yeah. We're the ones who are training the future overlords, and we do have minions and henchmen. That is two different categories.
Actually, thinking about it, that would be a terrible plan because you'd get a bunch of minions in there, you'd vaporize them, they'd all turn into Dr. Manhattans, and you'd have a whole bunch of a unionized group of Dr. Manhattans on your hands. So yeah, don't do that. Don't do what I said.
Yeah.
So I think the key here, is actually, so if we actually want our minions to organize because for reasons, even if like perhaps they've had bad experiences with unions in the past, but we think that it's best for our own nefarious purposes for them to be organized and come together as a team, and this is how we're going to do it. They're going to unionize. I think we have to make their lives really miserable and drive them to the point of rebellion, but just to closest, and then we have to like seed the ideas. Maybe we plant a person or two amongst them to plan. Hey, guys, we don't have to overthrow him. We could just become a union.
I do have to remind you, this is a question from a minion.
Yeah, see, I think okay. So
yes,
obviously
Mr.
we are
Bezos?
automatically going to.
Yeah, Mr. Bezos, could you? Yeah.
I have a second question. In the event of an interdimensional portal malfunction, how does a minion safely navigate back to the main quest line?
See,
I'm seeing some emergency. I'm seeing an emergency on our board here about an interdimensional portal. So I'm afraid we don't have time to answer that question. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Head on over to layersecrets.com for more campaigns and coffee and our main show.